everyone. This is Rich Johnson here. Today we're going to be talking about how to set up a company safety program that meets OSHA requirements. This is really a complicated topic. It's fairly simple, but that's not to say it's not a time-consuming project if you have ever tried to do one. Our agenda is basically to review the OSHA regulations, and of course, as I said, not really going through all of them. There's a lot of them. Then we'll discuss the idea of a job hazard analysis by selecting what specific regulations you need to use and then how to actually write your safety manual. So there are classifications that most people are going to be concerned with as far as OSHA regulations. This one is the general industry, which is manufacturing, maintenance, and repair, which is 1910. And construction, which is building, as I say here, something new from hole to the ground and up, 1926. So those are the two that you're going to be, one or two of them are the ones you're going to be in. So you be aware of that, which ones to select. Now, one thing I right off the top is do not spend your money on a generic safety program. What you'll get, if you've done this before or have it, for instance, if you go to a vendor that sells these things, you get several 3-ring binders, and you'll get everything. It's going to be all-inclusive, overwhelming, huge documents all over the place, and you're still going to have to go through the same steps that we're going to talk about here, even though you what would be a lot of paperwork. So I don't advocate for buying a generic safety program. Step is to conduct a job hazard analysis. If you have had me do a mock OSHA inspection for you, this is essentially what I do. I walk through your facility for the first time. That's trying to identify the hazards by each job description. What are the hazards that could injure or cause illness to an employee? That's what you're trying to identify. You even have to consider such things as what are the specific tools that are being used and how are they being used. Are there chemicals in use? Of course, we have the HAZCOM program under that one. And then consider job activity. So if somebody is doing something on a regular basis, 90% of their task is this. That's a regular task. Then on the outside of that are these occasional things which may occur frequently and infrequently, but still have a specific hazard, but are just not that frequent. So frequency and severity are something that will go into this as well. They make that written list of the hazards identified. You could do this, in doing it, break it down into small groups. So you might start, let's say if you're a manufacturer that does a lot of metal welding, I would want to start in perhaps the raw material receiving area. Follow the process flow. So start everything comes in, check see what the hazards might be there based upon the jobs that are being done. If you have a ladder standing there, but nobody ever uses it, do you ladder safety program? No. Honestly, unless someone on a regular basis with your maintenance department would use that ladder, now you have to consider it, but it's not something that's going to affect everyone. There again is your hazard list. You've got to do it for each job description or each specific area. There's no shortcut. There's no way you can do this any simpler. Once you've got a hazard, let's go back to ladder safety. In your maintenance department, you know that ladders are used probably 80% of the time, and you've got 5 people that are using the ladders. Okay, well now you go into the regulation, and you identify you can do this on OSHA's website, which is www.osha.gov. Go into the Regulations tab, and you can go through the general descriptors of each regulation to see if where the ladder safety standard is. And then, once at that regulation, you always want to read the first few paragraphs, because somewhere in those first paragraphs will have a scope. Scope is how this regulation can be applied, or it can be applied. OSHA does not have the ability to take specific out of a regulation and apply it any place they want to. They have to stay within the scope of that regulation, and that's what you're going to do. Does this regulation cover the scope, or the scope of this regulation cover the application of how you're going to be using that ladder? and complicated, but it's no any other way to do this, quite honestly. So once you then identify which particular regulations you're going to have to deal with, then you want to read the rules, the regulations, to figure out what the specific control methods are that OSHA specifies in their regulation. Every regulation that OSHA has is based upon a group of hazards, observed hazards. Way of the tower, the history, people have hurt or injured in some way. That's what we're trying to cover. And those regulations will have specific control methods that you need to implement to prevent this from happening. My last point here is you want to seek out templates. I have templates for almost every regulation there is out there, and they are available for free. You can buy these if you want to. We don't know who wrote these. They're historical documents, but same. Somebody goes out and buys one or creates one and puts it on the internet or sends it to someone else. OSHA writes these things up. All free. Don't pay for them. On the internet, look for one, but under no circumstance buy one because, like I said, they are free from someplace. And check with me when in doubt. Just send me an email, and I can certainly provide you with the major ones. And if it's something I don't have, they're hard to find. I decided we're back at the maintenance department. Now we're going to write the specific safety program for the maintenance department. Call SOP, if you will, our standard operating procedure. And specific things that you're going to do in the maintenance department that's going to prevent one of your maintenance employees from getting hurt from observed hazards. Again, seek templates. They're out there. Work rules, all the work that you're going to do in terms of developing a safety program are useless unless you develop work rules. So you can develop a safety program that's got 600 pages in it, but if you have any way to enforce those rules, you might as well have not even gone through this activity. You've got to come up with work rules which require a set of procedure whereby the employee must follow the procedures that you have established in this safety program. Work rules, I've got templates. This is one of those areas where health and safety and HR, human resources, cross. This is one area where we come, it's a common area. So there's a state. Luckily that you're part of Hosman Johnson, we also have a HR consulting program. And the point at which when you develop work rules, which if I get you to the one point, I'll say, okay, now you need to talk to Miro or Amy in our HR consulting department, so they'll help you take it to the next level as far as implementing a work rule book or making it part of your employee handbook or whatever. But it becomes part of the HR department at that time. Seek templates. We have a lot of those. Now, you need to tie those work rules into a progressive discipline program. Sadly, you have to discipline employees for following the rules. And you have to reward them as well if they're doing it correctly. Competence and reward is how the human mind operates. We can't get away from it. If you don't have a progressive discipline program now and are not enforcing the work rules, you have a way of controlling how people are, whether they're going to comply or not. Sadly, it's just the way the human mind works. And I don't believe anybody that's on the phone today runs some kind of a social welfare program where you're helping people in a profit-making business, and you have to stop like workers' comp costs. Those are things that hit your bottom line. And who creates those problems? It's your employees who are not following the work rules. So you have to establish a progressive discipline program as well. And again, help you on that to a point, and then we turn it over to the HR department. Excuse me. OSHA recognizes progressive discipline. You get a citation and you say, well, the employee broke the rule, and what you're applying for is what's called a unavoidable employee misconduct exemption. Unavoidable employee misconduct. Now, to have that, to make that stick, you have to show that you have work rules. You have to show that you have a progressive discipline program. You have to show that you discipline people. Then you have to show that the employees were properly trained. If you show that the guy in the maintenance department that fell off the ladder had been properly trained in ladder safety, you have a progressive discipline program. This individual has been disciplined before for not following the work rules. They can make that argument with OSHA. But if you don't have all those aspects in line, you can't make that argument, even though we all know that the 8% of all accidents are a result of someone making a choice to do something wrong. Finally, the next point is develop the work rule book in a form that each employee will get a copy of it. And this, again, you write these down. Work rules are one-liners. For instance, you will step on the top step of a step ladder. Well, interestingly enough, most step ladders will have a sign at the top of the step, do not step. It's not stable. Well, you've got to make a work rule out of that. As stupid as it sounds, you've got to tell people not to do it. If they do it, you have to discipline them. So you put those kind of work with those one-liners into a book, either by hazard or by grouping, and then the last page on that book is a sign-off. So you might give this to them on a Friday afternoon and say, sign it, read this, review it over the weekend, get it back to me on Monday, and sign off that you've read it. We're going to read that. Not many. If they sign off on it, they acknowledge they've read it. And that's what you want to be able to implement a progressive discipline program. You've told them that these rules exist. That's your program. Now, requirements. I calls on this all the time, and I hear of safety vendors, safety training vendors who you pay for, who are actually saying, well, there's annual renewal on this, and you have to do it every year, and we're going to come in and do it for you. Not that many training requirements that establish an annual requirement or an annual refresher. There's a few, 2 or 3 of them that I can think of off the top of my head. OSHA has been very nice to go out and put together this publication, and there's the website where you can document it, or a copy of it. It's a free document. It's a PDF file. You can download this document, and it will say specifically what the training frequency is. And you'll be surprised to find out how many programs do not require an annual training. Training is an example. It's a 3-year refresher. Now, the rule used to say frequent training such as every 3 years. Well, now OSHA trying to change the rule, and they're requiring you to do a 3-year renewal. So if you're not doing that on your cliff, well, they'll say that in this book. But OSHA document 254 will give you the training frequencies for each of the safety requirements. The next step of your safety program, you've established the procedures, the SOPs. You have set up the work rules. Now you step back and train the employees on the work rules that have been established. I'm a firm believer that if you train people multiple times, it's going to click. It'll become habit. Unfortunately, anybody in the HR world or dealing with people in human behavior, we know that doesn't work. You have to have the consequence and reward to get people to understand or to make this part of their behavior. Or they get hurt, and once they recover, they'll never do that same task again, because that's common sense. But with training, as the safety rules, you want to break it up into small bites. I'll mention this at the end, that you want to break it up into small bites. You want to do little or specific safety rules at a time, one program at a time. You want to establish an implementation schedule. So that schedule would say safety development or safety SOP development for the next 30 days, then followed by work rule development for the next 10 days, and then training program would be the next 2 days. So you'll know exactly when you're going to do that training. And at that time during the training, you review the work rules, identifying what each person is expected to do. And you document it. Just say you did it is not good evidence for an OSHA complaint or an OSHA citation. You need to be able to show that on such and such a day, on this was the topic we presented, and here were the employees that were present. Now, you don't have to have them sign it. The ruling made several years, 20 years ago, that by the OSHA Review Commission, employees do not have to train or do not have to sign. It was a union discipline or whatever, if I remember right, historically. But what you can do is just, if you want to have them sign it, that's fine. If they don't want to sign it, put their name in there anyway, because you have them on payroll as being they were on work that day and they were here. That's all you have to do, just put their name in there. Documents that they received the proper training. Look at document publication 2254. I think you're going to see that it says training at time of or one-time training. When they first introduced to the job, they get that training once. And that's all you have to do as far as training. We said work rule enforcement side of it. I will admit this is a complex and time-consuming project. I know of no other way to do this. Unfortunately, people think, like I said in the beginning, contact a vendor, you buy a safety program, and you think, oh boy, I'm going to have this. It's all set to go. And you get these three-ring binders in the mail, and you put them up on your credenza, and now you have a safety program. That's not a safety program. I remember as a compliance officer years ago, you'd sit down with an owner and you'd say, well, where's your safety program? And they'd be really proud to pull out these three-ring binders, perfectly white, still covered in plastic. Here's our safety program. It's not a safety program. You go through the steps that I've already outlined for you. There's no shortcut. It's good time, but again, if you break it into times or small bites, you can do it. And again, I'm available. We now have a second person in our loss control department. His name is Rick Barton. Very qualified, very experienced. He's another person that you can call, and we will be glad to help you do this, but it's something you have to do. There's no shortcuts around it. If you're going to take this on and you haven't done it yet, I would prioritize by the hazards. Go after those risks to your employees. The most obvious risk. You look at your OSHA 300 log, for instance, and say, well, let's see what kind of injuries that we have over the past 3 or 4 years. And you've had a series of repeat injuries, slips and falls or whatever. That might be a place to start and say, okay, going to, this is the one we'll deal with first and work your way down. But you've got to go through that. Prioritization is a good way to organize yourself. His website is available as a good resource. It's one of the best websites I've ever seen, considering it's from a governmental office. I would not call OSHA and ask for help. They're not allowed to do that. I call them on occasion. If you call me and ask me a question, I'll call OSHA and talk to the area directors. I know them all on a first-name basis. I can ask that question for you, and I won't mention your name. But if you call them and you mention your company, you're calling their attention to you. They really can't offer consultation services. That's why the OSHA Consultation Service was created. OSHA Consultation is a state agency, really funded. 50% of their budget comes from the feds, and they are a consultative service. They do not write citations. They do not fine. They do not communicate with OSHA. You call them up and ask a question. They are there truly to help you. The only downside to using their services is that if you have them come out and do a walkthrough, if they find something that has to be fixed, that is a violation, you have to fix it, and they will monitor to make sure that you do fix it. I worked with the health consultation program for about 3 years. It's a good program for small employers, 20 and less, I believe. It's a good course. I would never discourage anyone from using it. And don't worry about getting OSHA involved. No, they don't talk to OSHA. That's the simplest way to do it. Do we have any questions at this point?
All of the callers off of mute, so if you have any questions, just go ahead and speak right up. I will be sending the PowerPoint and the recording of this presentation to everyone who signed up for this webinar. So you will be getting that from me in about a day or two. got a question on our Q&A function. How do we determine whether it's general or construction?
The distinction is construction is constructing something new. If you when it's typically buildings or some kind of a structure. So if you start with a hole in the ground and something brand new, that's construction. If you remodel or redo something and make something new out of an existing structure, that's construction. On the other hand, if you maintain a structure that originally was created, things like repairing the HVAC system or whatever, that's under maintenance, which is under general industry. So only those who build something new are under the construction. I hope that answers the question.
Do we have a question? Bobby O asks, a specific website you use for templates?
Specific website, the best you could probably do would be to, well, OSHA Consultation has them. You could contact OSHA Consultation and get stuff from them. Get some what I do typically is I just Google it if there's one that I don't have, and I find that the universities, various universities across the country, develop really nice templates. They tend to be a little wordy. You have to clean up or shorten them. But for instance, you could Purdue University, for instance, has a lot of these, and their health and safety department, they create a lot of them. That's one of the sites I use a lot. But you have to clean them out. They're huge. But I have one. That's a specific site. I have a lot of them available in a Word document. You can email me, and I'll send them over to you.
And then just wanted to clarify, so until the hole in the ground is created, we should define our procedures and work rules as general manufacturing.
I'm assuming that you maybe are like a design engineer or an engineering firm or something to that, or an architectural firm, something where you're designing things. It's where your employees are working. If working on construction sites, are under construction. If they're working in a manufacturing facility where they're in construction, yeah. So we won't be on the site. Where your employees are. If your employees are going out to the work site, then you have to deal with the construction standard. If they're considering, I'm heading because the consulting side of it is really difficult. We don't know where they go. I honestly, as the way you described it, Colin, I would say do deal with the construction standard. I would stay in that area.
Great questions that are beneficial to everyone who's listening. So if you have anything else, please feel free to speak up.
To mention would be if you have subcontractors coming into a facility, for instance, if you're a manufacturing and you have a contractor come in to repair your HVAC system, who's responsible for the safety programs of that subcontractor? As the contractor, you need to make sure that subcontractor has good safety rules, and you need to have them document in their contract with you that they will abide by all existing health and safety rules, and that they're showing you that they have a safety program, and you're off the hook essentially as the contractor. As long as they are following good rules. If you see them misbehaving, you are totally within your right to call up the owner of that contractor and say, your guys are out here crawling on the top step of that ladder. We want that fixed here. Would you tell them to stop doing that? Because there are rules. It's the general contractor, subcontractor laws that really could make you as the contractor responsible for the behavior of that subcontractor. But again, you just make sure they have their rules and they follow them. But you don't have to write their rules. That's a whole other can of worms.
Give 1 or 2 more minutes for anybody to answer questions before I pull up the survey. Okay, nothing further, and if there is, I'm still going to leave the Q&A function up, so feel free to type something in. I'm going to pull up the survey. Just fill out the survey for me real quick, and then I'll pull up the Sherman HRCI credit information. Just as a reminder, everybody, you know, Rick, a high-level overview of this stuff. So if you need individual help with getting this started, please feel free to contact him. You can call him, you email him, and he's here at your disposal to help you. Thank you, everybody, for listening in, and I'll be pulling up the credits very